I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoops, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back.
Okay, so today's episode it's going to be a little different, I would say, than what you might be used to. And I hope that's a good thing. I hope that's in a good way. I'm going to make it in a good way. And I'd be lying right now if I said that I wasn't scared out of my mind right now about to record this for you guys. Because I definitely have been avoiding recording this episode for a really long time. So much so that I would even say part of the reason why I took a break from the podcast was because I didn't know what to record if I didn't record this episode. And I think in the episode where I said I'm back, I kind of shared a little bit about that, but not as much as I will today, because I felt like if I couldn't record this episode, then I really shouldn't be recording any episodes. That's how I felt at the time. And I've come to the realization since then, and mostly the other night, that the solution to all this wasn't necessarily avoiding you all and holing up in my own little world. The solution really was to do the opposite of what I had been doing, which was to lean in, to be raw, to be honest, to share. Because even if what I'm going to share with you guys today helps just one person out there who's feeling the same way and who might be able to learn from my experience, well, then all of this was absolutely worthwhile. But it can't be worthwhile unless I come out and share with you guys and not just stories, which I will share today, but, you know, also what I've learned from what's been happening over the past couple months. And to have enough faith, I would say, still to know that all of this is temporary. I'm not perfect, even though I teach this stuff and I would love to be perfect at it. I'm not perfect at it at all. And also that I don't think you expect perfection. If you do, please go listen to another podcast. Although I would doubt that those other podcasters are perfect at it either. I don't think any of us are perfect, quote unquote, at manifestation. But I think that you expect experience so that you can improve the way that you manifest. That's all that we're looking to do, is improve the way we manifest, right? And that's why I'm here sharing any of these episodes that I've shared over the past year. That it's even through my failings with all of this, that there's something to be learned here. I'd even argue that there's perhaps even more to be learned through failing than if I were to succeed. If I was just succeeded at every single manifestation, I don't think I would know what it is that makes manifestation work, as well as being able to succeed at some and then fail at others and say, okay, what's the difference there? And I have a good friend. Her name is Elena Davies. If you're a Big Brother fan, you might know her from BB19. You might even know her from her podcast, the Miscellaneous Podcast. But I was sharing with her and some other close friends of mine about everything that I've been going through. And she sent me the sweetest message. I was sharing, that I feel like an imposter with all this manifestation stuff. Like there's this area of my life that I'm really struggling and manifesting right now. And it's causing me to question and kind of have this manifestation faith crisis. It's causing me to question this entire belief system. And I just don't understand. This is what I was sharing, that I just don't understand how I can show up to work each and every day. I can work with clients all day long, work with students all day long. I help those clients and students achieve their dreams. I witness their manifestations come to life. I share in their joy in realizing their dreams. I help them. I play a small role in helping them reach that place. And yet, here I am, it's almost comical. Here I am, unable to do this in this particular area in my life at this time. And I was really starting to feel like an imposter. Like I was feeling like, oh man, I'm letting you guys down. And if I couldn't be an example of what was possible in this area of my life, what did I have to say, or what do I have to share? And does that even count anymore? That's what I was sharing with my close friends. And Elena offered me she offered me the sweetest thought. She said, sometimes God allows us to experience things so we're better prepared to help others later. And that just sort of hit me right in the heart, like right in that place that needed to sort of be broken open in that moment. And I thought, you know what? Maybe hiding from you, yes, you who's listening, maybe hiding from you and not sharing, maybe that wasn't the answer. In fact, I knew that wasn't the answer because it didn't feel very good while I was doing it. And I felt like it was just fueling more of this misalignment, more of this shame, more of this questioning. And maybe it was by opening up and sharing with you where I'm at and where I'm still learning and where I'm learning and what I'm learning as I navigate through it, that would help you navigate through yours too. And so that's the purpose of today and this episode. I want to share with you how I've been navigating what I consider sort of a manifestation faith crisis in real time. I don't think I've ever butted up against manifestation in such a visceral way since I started manifesting, how many years ago? 16, 17 years ago? Like, I think this has really been the biggest challenge I've ever had with it. And therefore, what a beautiful opportunity to overcome that challenge and learn from that challenge and share those learnings with you so that you don't have to go through that challenge. I'm not out of it yet. I'm not. This is fresh off the press learnings here for you guys. I want to capture those learnings fresh so that hopefully you'll never have to go through a manifestation faith crisis like this. And if you do, you might know how to make your way through the dark as well. So I'm going to try not to cry when recording this episode, but I'm not making any promises because I'm a pretty emotional person just as it is. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. So let me catch you up with what's been going on over the last couple months. Okay. I've shared here on the show before for the past 2.5 years, I've been manifesting growing my family. And that's been such a blessing to have as a manifestation because it's been a dream of mine to have children for as long as I can remember. Like, I have 2 beautiful nieces. I have 1 amazing nephew. I love them so wholly and completely. And I've just been so excited to start my own family. Motherhood has always been one of my top dreams and manifestations of my life, even before I was in a place where I was ready to have kids, right? Even since I was a little girl. And so my husband and I had started trying to conceive back at the end of 2021, around October or so, shortly after we had finished construction on our dream home. We had finally built our dream home here in Austin, Texas, and we were like, yeah, we got the space now, we're ready, right? So we gave it a few months, and once March of the next year had rolled around, March 2022, I wasn't pregnant yet. I was kind of surprised by that because here we had been, trying now for 6 months or so, and it hadn't been happening. And I kind of had this thought, well, gosh, I thought this was the year I was going to get pregnant. I guess it's not. So I might as well apply for Big Brother again. Like, I'd always been, obsessed with this reality TV show, Big Brother. I always wanted to be on it. I kind of thought that my time had passed since I was going to start a family this year. But here I wasn't pregnant, so let's apply. And, well, as if you're familiar with the show, that was the year that I got cast on the show. And so naturally, when you know you're going to be gone for 3 months on a reality TV show, we put our family expansion plans back on hold. I went on the show, did the show, came back from the show, was still sort of acclimating to normal life for the rest of 2022. But at the beginning of 2023, we were like, yes, got that dream out of the way, did the Big Brother thing, check. Like, what's the next big life dream, right? Like, this is the year, let's have a baby. And so for that full year, all of 2023, we tried to conceive naturally, and we had 0 success. It was, and if you've been a listener of the show, like all the podcasts when did I start the podcast? Oh, I started the podcast at the end of 2023. A lot of the podcasts I talk about that with various guests and whatnot, is kind of during that process. And it was painful. Like, I would say it definitely felt like, it just felt like life was on hold. Like, I'd go to the OBGYN, I'd be like, why isn't this happening? Like, shouldn't we look into this? And like, don't even get me started on doctors and stuff. Like, she literally, what she said, she was like, go on vacation. It's like, it's just, and like, part of me is like, oh, that's so dismissive and not at all helpful. But then the other part of me that looks at it from an alignment perspective, I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, like, you aren't aligned on this. You're worrying, like, just go have fun, which is maybe the exact thing that I needed. Maybe I should have listened to her advice way back then. But, you know, we went on vacation and there was no success, right? And what was so crazy is at the same time, and I can even remember talking about this a little bit in the past episode where I interviewed Caitlin Herman from Big Brother. Like, I have such a strong spiritual connection to my spirit babies. It was through deep meditation, deep hypnotherapy sessions that I did myself that I would be able to speak to these spirits that I knew were my future children. And there were kind of like two babies, two spirits that would consistently come forth. One was super outgoing and the other one was like super, super shy. It would always kind of like hang back in the distance compared to the one. And the outgoing spirit was always like, she would always seem to kind of do the talking for the both of them. And during this one hypnotherapy session I had, I think it was like in July 2023, I very clearly got the message that the outgoing spirit, she told me that her job was to bring or to help the shy spirit come to earth. And so I was like, you know, I had that hypnotherapy session. I was like, oh, interesting, cool. Like, siblings, great. Didn't think much of it, you know. The whole rest of that year went by, all of 2023, no pregnancies, negative pregnancy test after negative pregnancy test. And it was just really hard, you know. I would say it was even interesting too. I feel like it tested, not in a bad way, but it tested even my marriage at times. Like, in fact, I feel like it brought us closer together. You know, I don't know if you're married or if you're in a, you know, a significant relationship with someone, that sometimes when you go through difficult times that impact you both, like, it just kind of required us to up-level our communication and work out some things that had just been easy. You know, being together, I guess 13 years at that point, had just been easy to kind of set aside and be like, oh, we're going to work on that later. And I feel like it made us made us much stronger, which, you know, that is a blessing in itself. So that was 2023. When 2024 came along, after a full year of trying naturally, we decided to finally go to a fertility clinic. And we went to the fertility clinic. We got all these tests done. I knew already that I had PCOS. And the one benefit, there's many non-benefits to PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. But one of the benefits of it is that you tend to have more eggs than normal. So my egg reserve was quite high, which was nice, especially for my age. But my husband had some morphology concerns. And so kind of both of us together, both of these things together were making it particularly tough. But the doctors weren't concerned. Like, they really weren't concerned. We were told that we were good candidates for IUI. If you're familiar with fertility things, usually you do IUI or you do IVF. And we were told that we didn't have to escalate to IVF yet. So we were told, like, hey, give IUI 6 rounds, meaning 6 months. And if that didn't result in a successful pregnancy, then we would need to talk about next steps. But that was basically kind of what we were told. So February of this year, we did round 1, no pregnancy. March, we did round 2, no pregnancy. April, we did round 3. And that's when I got a positive. I was finally pregnant. And I just want to take a moment, okay? I just want to take a moment for a second and just like relish in the joy of that news. Because it's so, I cry. It's so exciting to share it because it was such an amazing day. It will literally go down as one of the best moments of my life. I really genuinely will never forget it. I remember Because when you do fertility treatments, you don't even have to wait. Like, you don't have to wait that long to find out if you're pregnant because they have you doing all these blood tests. And so I remember getting the call of my blood test results and the nurse on the other end of the phone. I talked to her many times before, but she was so chipper, like on the phone. Like she was in such a good mood, right? She was so nice. And I remember having sort of this fleeting thought when I noticed that she was so nice, saying hello to me on the phone and stuff. I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is going to be really cruel if the result is negative. Like, why is she being so nice to me if it's going to be negative? Like that should tell you my line of thinking right now, right? I was so jaded after so many no's. And then there was a split second where I was like, wait, maybe she's being so nice to me because she has good news. Like this could be positive. And like by the time I finished that thought, sure enough, she was telling me it was a positive pregnancy test. And I remember just like bawling like a baby. I had just finished doing a hypnotherapy session. I was feeling really good and just crying. It just felt like all the stress and all the waiting of those 15 months up until that point, like it just all just sort of came out of me at once. It was like this big relief. And I naturally got the call. I found out. I was going to like tell my husband this really like cute way and like surprise him. But when you've been waiting this long to hear a result like this, you don't want to wait any longer. So I was like, screw that. I'm not doing that. I just need to go tell him. And so he was in his home office. I walk into his office and I didn't even need to say anything. Like I just looked at him. And I don't know if it was like telecommunication or he just knows me so well, but he just like instantly knew. It's like I didn't even have to say anything. And we both just like cried. We just bawled. We just were like hugging each other. We were so happy, like so excited. And it just kind of felt like this whole awful, because that's how I felt about it, this whole awful fertility journey that was filled with so much disappointment and so much waiting was just over. Like we had finally made it. We had moved on. We'd gotten to like a new place, right? And I guess it was naive of me, or I don't even know. I mean, honestly, when I look at that thought, I think, oh, well, that seems pretty positive. But like, that's where it's just the magic of all the moving pieces and all the unknowns and all the frequencies and the vibrations and the alignments that need to happen for different things to line up in life. Like, I just think at the time I didn't even consider pregnancy loss could be a thing because it just felt like we had been through enough. Like it just felt like, oh, there was only so much bad that could be assigned to any given experience. And like we had earned our stripes and therefore it would be unfair to experience any more hardship. And honestly, this kind of gets back to this, and I'll just fully own up to it. I just think there was this certain level of entitlement that I felt that it was just like I had gone through the trenches and therefore there was no more trenches I deserved to climb through, which is so bogus because there are so many people in the world that are going through so much worse. Like I'm not even going to begin to pretend. It's so easy. And this is why I'm sharing with you guys like what not to do. Okay. Don't do this. It's so easy to get caught up in your own story, right? Because your story, it hurts. And I'm not going to negate that your story hurts you and my story can hurt me and these life experiences. But like when you get so wrapped up in it, then you get this like sense of entitlement that like, oh, this shouldn't happen to me. And it's just that's not true. I don't know. I'll elaborate on that later because I'm still sort of wrestling with that. But just be careful, I guess, is the lesson of getting caught in your own story. Okay. And try to gut check your stories as you're in them so you aren't reflecting about it way later and realizing, oh, I was getting caught in a story. You can catch it kind of like in the moment a little bit more, right? But I know all of that made zero logical sense to feel that way and to think that I was somehow like scotch-free, but that's how I was thinking at the time, right? But I was pregnant, and so I was happy. And I won't lie, being pregnant was tough. Oh my gosh. I was so tired. That's when I kind of stopped doing as many podcast episodes because I was so tired. I was going through so much. I had every symptom in the book. Like, but at the same time, I loved it. Like I can't even describe to it. Like who loves feeling sick and tired and nauseated and all these things, but I loved it. Like I absolutely loved being pregnant. And I remember thinking the day before our ultrasound, I was like, yikes, like this pregnancy thing is kicking my ass. Like, this is no joke. This feels so much harder than like I had imagined. Like it felt harder than my mom had told me, than my sister had told me, than my friends had described. Like it just was really hard. And I was beginning to almost feel bad. I was like, man, maybe I'm just not cut out for this. Maybe I'm just a big baby when it comes to this stuff, because this is way harder. And the very next day we had our ultrasound appointment. And so Steven, my husband, and I, we were driving to the first ultrasound appointment. And there's this beautiful pond. Well, there's multiple ponds, but there's this beautiful pond in our neighborhood. And we saw 2 cranes at the pond. And usually there's just one crane there that kind of just lives there. We're used to him. But like today there were 2. And Steven kind of looks over. I'm like, oh, look, there's 2 cranes. And he was like, uh-oh, does that mean we're having twins? He said that. And, we're like, ha, ha, ha. We laughed. Yeah. Laugh and the universe laughs with you. 45 minutes later, at this appointment, our first ultrasound, we get the news. We're having twins. And I still just laugh thinking about it, because I don't think I can ever adequately describe what it feels like to find out that you're having twins. Like your whole life just sort of flips upside down in one moment. And like the doctor keeps talking. It's like kind of like how they show in movies, I guess. But like the doctor keeps talking, but you were like you're not hearing it. Like it's just the words are sort of washing over you. And I just look at Steve and he's like grimacing. And it's just like, you're like, wait, what? And it's just so funny. Even our reproductive endocrinologist, our RE, she was just as shocked as we were, because we had known when you do all these fertility treatments, you know how many follicles you have. And I had only one dominant follicle this round of IUI. And so the only reason that we could see is that it must have been accidental. Like that follicle must have split, and that we were going to have identical twins. And I would be lying if I didn't say that I like cried the whole way home. I was like, obviously you're hormonal too, but like I was so thrown. Like I freaked out for probably a good 48 hours, but then I quickly got on board. Like I quickly was like, all right, we're doing this. Like I totally embraced being a twin mama. Like I followed all the twin accounts on Instagram. I thought for sure people would know I'm pregnant, because I was like following every twin account. I read like 3 books on how to have twins. I joined all these Reddit twin groups. Like I was so excited. And after that initial shock, I remember the first coherent thought that I could think when we saw those 2 embryos on the ultrasound was like, well, of course. Like I had been told in that deep hypnotherapy session a year before, I had been told that there were going to be 2. Like I didn't interpret it that way in the moment, but I knew that one baby was meant to bring the other baby here to Earth. And so the pregnancy continued to progress along the first trimester. Like I was going through the ringer. I had so many symptoms, but it was all going really well. We had 2 healthy heartbeats. Each week's appointment was just clicking right along, which was beautiful. And then my husband and I had planned for a baby moon. We had planned to go to Las Vegas at the end of May. And I've been feeling like a lot of pressure in my legs. Like I was nervous that I was going to have blood clots or something like that, because there was this lot of pressure in my legs, and I was kind of scared to go on the flight. And I don't know, it was just insane. It was so hard to describe. I just remember packing the night before and just freaking out, like feeling so anxious and just feeling really bad, just having a really bad feeling about it. Like I was so anxious. And it's so hard because I was really anxious just a lot. Like your hormone levels are all over the place. I don't know what mental health symptom is a result of pregnancy hormones and what is intuition. It was just really hard to kind of siphon out everything. And I mean, looking back on it, I feel like I really should have listened to my intuition at that moment. Like that was actually intuition telling me like, hey, something's going on. But to call off like a full trip and a full vacation that we were really looking forward to, that we had paid for, like it just felt like an overreaction at the time. And so we go to Vegas, and my anxiety is still like through the roof. Like, it was not enjoyable whatsoever. It was miserable. Like, I felt absolutely awful. I nearly fainted once at the pool. I had zero desire or energy to go to any of the shows that we had planned, to do anything that we had planned. Like, all I wanted to do was sleep. And to top it off, our second day that we were there, I started spotting on the trip, and that really freaked me out too. And so by day 2, we were like, okay, this isn't working. We're not enjoying this at all. Let's just try to recoup our losses. And we had planned a 7-day trip, but by day 2, we were just like, let's cut it short. Let's go home. And so it just felt safer. Like, I don't know, something just kind of seemed off. I know plenty of people travel when they're pregnant, so that's why I kept on trying to tell myself, I'm like, I'm sure it's fine. It's fine for most people, but just something just really didn't feel right. And, I wish I would have listened to myself when I was still at home 2 days prior. But by that point, I was like, I got to listen to my gut. Like, we got to go home. And so looking back on it, I really think it was my body, or maybe even my intuition's way of just like letting me know that something was going to happen. Because 2 days after that, I started to miscarry baby B, and I was 8 weeks pregnant at the time. And wow, like I can't describe the level of devastation, like just how devastating that news is. Like, and it was such a mix of emotions too, because like here I was absolutely heartbroken. But yet I was still pregnant, and healthily pregnant with baby A. And baby A was doing great, like doing wonderful in ultrasounds. Being pregnant like this was my dream that I'd wanted for so long. And it's just like, here I was like so sad, and it made it so hard to enjoy it. Oh, this is tough. And, it was tough. It was tough. Just like no longer going to have twins. And it felt just like, and that idea to be sad about that felt so weird, because like even just 3 weeks earlier, the idea of having twins had absolutely terrified me. And yet here I was sad that it wasn't going to happen, But it's a thing that happens. If you've ever been pregnant, or if you've ever considering being pregnant, or you have a spouse or significant other that may be, it's called vanishing twin syndrome. And it's when you miscarry one of the twins. And it's just so interesting, because nearly all the articles, nearly all the Reddit threads, like everything I listened to, everything I read said that most pregnancies will go on and you'll deliver a healthy baby. It's just you can lose one in the process. And it was hard to let go, even of the identity component of being a twin mom. I like to talk about identity in the terms of manifestation a lot. But even just that identity component of who you thought you were going to be with this dream. I thought I was going to be a twin mom, was just really hard to let go of. And like even just down to little things like, oh, the strollers I had researched were all double strollers. I don't know what you do for a single stroller. Like, all these things, all the books I had read were about twin parenting. Like, it felt weird to try to all of a sudden join this like other club of like singleton moms now. And it was so silly, but it really messed with my sense of what this experience was going to be, and the expectations around it. And I think that's what, again, calling out another lesson in real time, like just expectations, man, just like, and that's been something to grapple with. Like, how does one release expectation as they manifest? Because you would think, manifesting, you have a vision of your goal, of your dream in mind, right? That's essentially an expectation. But there's a difference between what that goal and dream is, and then how it plays out and how it shows up in your life and the expectations around that. And so you somehow have to maintain the goal and the vision and the dream, if that feels good to you. If it doesn't feel good to you, don't, which I will surely get to here in a moment. But releasing the expectation of how you're going to get there is the expectation to actually release, because it's not always helpful if it's not helping you stay in alignment. And I definitely learned that here. So the hypnotherapy sessions that I had at this time were so intense too. Like Baby B would come to me in meditation and deep hypnosis, and they would say like, hey, we told you we were only ever supposed to be here. Our only job here was to set up baby A, get them feeling safe and sound and growing. And then once baby A is ready, our job was to leave and we'll come back later. And I think that feeling that and knowing that I had that knowing before any of this had happened really kind of brought me like a lot of peace. Because I'm like, okay, like there's a reason, like I understand this. And like, I also kind of felt a little like I was a crazy lady. Like, am I just creating this to cope? You know, I'm like imagining myself like muttering to myself in the corner of the room or something. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it felt that way, but I also was just like, you know what? Like, I just have to I just felt so connected being pregnant that I just had to like, why not? Why not trust it? You know? So I continued to navigate through the pregnancy. I navigated 2.5 weeks or so this way until we reached week 10.5 of the pregnancy. And that's when I started to have some more bleeding. And it freaked me out. But I also had this idea in the back of my mind that I'd been warned that it might just be the after effects of baby B. I had never like formally miscarried baby B. Some people say that the doctor said that you might absorb the baby's tissue like into your body, like, or you might actually miscarry it. Like we didn't know, and none of that had happened. So I was like, okay, there's a chance that this is just baby B, which we already knew about was happening. We knew that baby A was fine. In fact, I had just had a doctor's appointment where baby A was doing great, growing right along, healthy heartbeat, everything. So I thought, you know what, I could just be miscarrying baby B, but it sort of quickly became apparent to me that it wasn't just one baby. And I don't know, I guess they say like, you just know, like that's actually literally a symptom of miscarriage is like, you just know. Like, how can that be a symptom? Like, how can that be a symptom that just goes to show how heightened your intuition is when you're pregnant and when you're a mom? Like, literally a symptom of miscarriage is like just feeling not pregnant anymore. And it's just like, I just knew. And of course, I'm going to spare you as many details as possible, but like, it was a really traumatic experience. Like, I started having full on contractions, which I had never given birth before. So I did not know what contractions felt like. Now I know. I was throwing up. I was bleeding. It was horrendous. And it was really scary. Like, I just remember kind of hitting this point of like pure delirium where I was like half conscious, half not. And Stephen was trying to get in touch with the doctors. And I just realized that like I wasn't in charge here, you know, like my body was taking over and I just kind of had to surrender to what was happening. No matter how much I didn't want it to happen. That's the hard part when you're like, man, I really don't want this, right? We talk about like manifestation, like resistance, right? Like there was so much resistance to what was happening. And there was nothing I could do about it. And I hated it with every ounce of my being, but I knew that I was losing both the babies. I knew it. And I couldn't fight it. I just had to surrender to what was happening. And I just had to let my body sort of take over. And I imagine that kind of feeling might come in handy if you were giving birth to a live baby, that surrender and trusting the process. But man, it's a whole different experience, I would imagine, to have to do it when you know the outcome isn't what you wanted. And I had never experienced that sort of level of surrender before. And what was so weird about it is once I decided, oh yeah, man, I'm really not in charge here. Like this whole illusion of control here is just that. It's an illusion. And once I just really internalized this, I was sort of met with this quiet sense of peace and this sense of stillness. And I will say it made the contractions hurt a whole lot less to just work with my body and just to surrender to it and just to accept, okay, this is happening whether I want it to happen or not. Eventually I went to the ER, which like, don't even get me started about the ER experience. I live in Texas. Please go out and vote, and don't vote if you're not going to vote for a candidate that's going to help protect women's health in this way, because it's a very scary experience to be living through. It's the weirdest thing to thank God for, but like, I just literally thank God in the universe that I miscarried both babies naturally and that I didn't have any sort of, complications with it, because I would have been in some major trouble if my well-being had been up to that hospital. Like, I come to learn that the hospital that's closest to my house doesn't even have an OBGYN on staff. Okay. Like, they don't even have any sort of female reproductive doctor at the entire hospital. I later found out that all the treatment I was receiving was via the phone from my own reproductive endocrinologist that was guiding these doctors what to do on a Sunday. And so once my doctor had looked at everything and realized that there was no sign of either baby, they just handed me this pamphlet on miscarriage, like this stapled pieces of paper, and they sent me home. And we were just sort of like sent home to grieve. Like, we were just sent home with nothing. And that was June of this year. June 2nd was baby B. June 14th was baby A. And I had these super powerful hypnotherapy sessions afterwards where baby B was there and she was distraught and she was crying and she was like, "I'm so sorry. I thought baby A was ready. I thought baby A could do it. I'm sorry. Why did I leave? Why did I leave?" And of course I was consoling her, saying, "It's not your fault. It's okay," And baby A was just like, baby A, the shy one, was just like, "I'm sorry. I'm not ready to be human yet. I'm scared. I wasn't ready and I changed my mind." And I feel like it was in that moment that I learned what it meant to be a mother. To have your heart like ripped open, but to also understand and to love your child anyways. Like, I'd never experienced, usually when somebody rips open my heart, I'm done with them, like, "You're dead to me," like, that's usually like, if a man would do that, if a friend would do that, like, I'm done, right? I have boundaries. But like, this was to have your heart gutted and ripped open, but then to also love so deeply, was what I imagine is an experience that only a mother could have. And to also say like, "Hey, I understand, but there's a place for you here. Like, if you want it, there's a place for you here. I can't force you. I can't make you. I have to let you go. But like, at the same time, you can change your mind. It's okay, And so the next few weeks were really hard. Probably some of the hardest in my life. I have some amazing friends who just showed up for me like wholeheartedly. Like, it's interesting to see how your community like just shows up for you, or they don't. Some people didn't. And that is like, you'll always remember that too, right? Like, you kind of remember who was there and who wasn't when times are hard. And it really just reminded me, like, it really sticks with you. You kind of remember. It's kind of like when somebody like wishes you happy birthday on your birthday. You're like, "I'm going to remember to wish you happy birthday." Like, it makes you feel good, right? And it's just a good reminder to be that kind of person for my friends. God forbid if they go something through like this or something even worse. Like, and so we just decided to take some time. That was June. I just wanted to let my body heal. Stephen and I, we decided to take some time. We wanted to regroup. We wanted to evaluate. I ended up unfollowing one of my favorite influencers on Instagram because her due date was the exact day as mine. And I couldn't stand, like, I made the mistake the other day of checking in on her and like seeing her stomach and like I just couldn't stand to watch her belly grow and like knowing like that's this parallel life, like this other timeline that I could have been on. And I just kind of felt like at this moment, I just sort of felt like I had to make some like huge changes. Like, life couldn't be the same as it was anymore. And so I decided to make some big lifestyle changes. When the worst case scenario happens, like I don't even know what the percentage chance of miscarrying both was. All I can say is I've yet to find an experience online, and I've done a lot of research that mirrors my story. I haven't found it. No one's talked about it. I know it must happen, but I haven't found it. And when you kind of go through this worst case scenario, when it actually does happen, then you're just like, what's the point of all this? It made me kind of question like everything. Like, I stopped going to acupuncture because it's like, what's the point? Didn't help. Like, I just spent $7,000 on a PCOS nutritionist. She was zero help. In fact, she made things worse. Like, I started doing some of my own research on PCOS and fertility, and I found that actually eating a low-carb diet, like a medical keto diet, had actually been shown in some fertility studies to drastically improve fertility. There's even some really advanced fertility clinics that will have their patients go on keto, low-carb, before they do treatments because it's so effective. There's a whole thread on Reddit called Keto Babies, are just filled with stories of mothers who finally conceived after eating low-carb and making all these changes. And it was pretty much the opposite of what my nutritionist was telling me to do. And so I decided to try it. I was like, I'm going to go against her advice. I'm going to try it. Oh my gosh, guys, I instantly felt better. I felt so much better. My bloating went down. My joints ached less. This veil of brain fog that I thought was just what life felt like and what I thought was just me and my personality just completely lifted. I was like, what? Things can feel this good and clear? It was amazing. And so I met with the nutritionist again, and I was like, I just kind of wanted to hear her thoughts on it. I was like, what do you think? I know you have me eating like this, but what do you think about lessening the carbs? Even the healthy carbs? What do you think about that? And it's not a no carb diet, but it's just less, right? And she was like, oh no, don't do that. Blah, 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 blah. Here's why. And the reasons didn't even really make sense. And I was like, but this is the best I felt in years. So, and then of course she's trying to backtrack, right? But she wasn't supportive of it at all. So I decided to fire her. I was like, you're not helping me with this. I was in such an intuition fueled barrage. I just was so, cause my intuition I hadn't listened to it a good amount of pregnancy, and I wish I had. And so it was it almost felt like I was honoring their lives by listening to myself and trusting myself after this. And so I just decided then and there that I wasn't going to listen to anyone else's advice unless it jived with my intuition. And because that's what pregnancy had really gifted me. My intuition was just on fire during pregnancy. It was so, I'm so interested to hear if you've ever been pregnant, if you've had this experience. It was just so divine. I just loved it. I felt so spiritually connected. I felt like my third eye just opened up and was just glowing the entire time I was pregnant. And it made me trust myself so much more. And so I'm really so thankful to have had that gift. And I've done a good job since then of maintaining that gift that it's given me. And so I just followed my own intuition. I trusted it. I overhauled everything. I overhauled my diet, my supplements. I ended up finding out that I was allergic or irritated to one of the supplements for the past 5 months that this nutritionist had given me. So thank God I overhauled things, because this other issue that doctors couldn't figure out went away when I stopped that supplement. So thank God. I started following the advice of this book that's called It Starts with the Egg, which also suggested a low carb diet for women with PCOS. And from mid-June to I'd say about the end of August, I'd lost about 20 pounds. Now, this is not the goal. I'm not out to lose weight, obviously. But I think what was just so amazing to me, it was finally feedback. It was finally my body doing something different. Because here I was, I had eliminated sugar years ago. I ate, I'm the healthiest eater of anyone I know. And who gains weight? Who gains 40 pounds eating quinoa? It's just ridiculous. I knew things weren't adding up, and yet I was following these nutritionist advice and it just wasn't working, and things were getting worse. And I just didn't understand. And here it was finally my body, moving in a direction that seemed to suggest that things were getting better. And that just felt so wonderful. And it was so gratifying to see these changes, and to know that things were different than they were before, and, better than they were even when I got pregnant before. And so in mid-August, I went to a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation, or you might even call it hypnosis retreat. I connected with my spirit baby so deeply during that retreat. I just knew they were coming, so much so that even a few days into the retreat, I didn't even feel like I needed to focus on conception or getting pregnant or anything like that. I just was so sure of it. I'm like, let's move on to the next topic. I was just so set, so sure. And I also, at the very same time, got the Spirit Baby psychic reading done by Chloe Mediumship, which I highly recommend. And it was just so astounding how accurate It was like, it was so accurate, like down to like the littlest of details. And I had never gotten a psychic reading done before. And it really kind of was astounding to me. All these things that I had felt and I learned in my hypnotherapy sessions, like my personal hypnotherapy sessions, were confirmed, like these amazing details. Like I couldn't even begin to recount it all. Like she said, oh, you'll notice the color of your spirit baby is pink, which was always the color that came through during any of my hypnotherapy sessions. Like saying that ladybugs were our sign from our spirit baby. I had never seen a ladybug ever at our house. We had lots of other bugs, but never had a ladybug. And then the next day I saw 3. Like it was insane. Like even my husband, who's a skeptic sometime, he was like, oh my gosh, Brittany, like this is freaking me out. Like these crazy things. Those were only like 2 things. She knew that my parents were moving to Austin, Texas, which I hadn't told anybody but a few close friends. Like she knew that, yeah. And then that was crazy when my parents, the first day that I spent at their house, this bird just flew circles around us like 8 times when we were outside in their backyard. And like me and Steven just kind of look at each other and we're like, oh my God, like what's happening? Like we knew it was a sign because it was like, and even my parents were like, huh, that's weird. This bird is acting very odd. Like birds don't just usually just fly circles around you again and again and again. But it was just, I don't know, it was astounding. It was like all these signs. And the most amazing thing that she said was that September, the very next month, was going to be a conceiving month for me. And so that, I just was so excited. I was like, okay, like maybe September, right? The only thing that she said that didn't really make sense was that there would be a male doctor, which that was kind of like, weird, because my reproductive endocrinologist is a woman, it's female. But I didn't let it dissuade me because everything else she had said was so accurate. And so we go back. Early September, we decided to do our 4th IUI. Stephen gave his sample. His numbers had improved by 50%. Okay. They had improved 50% from the last round, which we had gotten pregnant from. So like, we're both like so excited. I mean, he's been making a lot of changes. I've been making even more changes. And so it made me feel really good about my body too, because I'm like, okay, if his numbers are showing up really well, like I don't have those numbers to look at, but at least I know I'm on the right track too. We knew that I had 2 dominant follicles this round, and they were both the same size. So we were totally prepared if this was going to be the month that we would probably have twins again, because we just knew that there was a good likelihood, a good chance of that, right? But I was so ready. Obviously, I was like so on board with that. Ends up, my ovulation landed on a weekend, and that's when the main doctor's office was closed. So I had to go to a different office. And the IUI procedure had to be done with a different doctor who was on call, who was a man. So obviously I was like, oh my gosh, this is all lining up. The psychic predicted this. Like it was insane. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, another positive pregnancy test. I was pregnant again. But this time, automatically from the get-go, the numbers were low. So they wanted us to monitor them. They wanted to retest in a week. Next week, numbers are still low, but they're rising. Still pregnant. 50-50 chance if it's going to be viable long-term. We test in another week, and by that time, I was miscarrying again. So this time it was a 5-week miscarriage, which they consider an early miscarriage, a chemical pregnancy. And so that happened, a week or so ago at the time of this recording, end of September. And now I'm here sharing this whole story with you guys here. And this one obviously was very sad too, especially because everything was just lining up, I mean, the psychic did say it was a conceiving month. I would prefer she tell me what is the month that I give birth. Maybe that would be a better month to know. And I think what was hard about this time is that this one was the one that caused me to just sort of question everything. Like, to question my relationship with expectations. I mean, for a hot second, to question manifestation even. Like, I know enough about it that I obviously have a lot of resistance on this topic. Like, that's kind of a no-brainer here, right? And I know enough to know that I need to shake that resistance. And so I'm just kind of exploring now, like, what does it look like to reset? like to reset your expectations, like a reset of what it means to enjoy life. And I found this question that really stuck with me. And if you're encountering something like this, I hope that it sticks with you too. But the question was, what if I could let this be enough right now? What if you could let this be enough right now? What if? What does that look like? Because I haven't been letting this life as it is right now be enough lately, which is such a shame because I have a phenomenal husband. I mean, truly, he's a soulmate partner in every sense of the word. I have a beautiful home. I have amazing clients and students. I'm living my dream job. Like, there's so much good. There's so much good right now. And yet when you're going through these kind of things, you're just so wrapped up in the symptoms and the testing and the this and the that. And it's just lack and lack and lack and lack. And you get some good news, but then it goes away. And it's just like, you don't notice. You don't let what is be enough. And so I think I just love goals. I just love manifestations so much that I've let it be my primary area of focus, my primary hobby. Like, I love what I do. I do it nonstop. And I think I've just kind of lost touch of what it means to have fun without it. And if you're listening to a manifestation podcast, I'm sure you love this too. And it's just like, I just want to remind you that there's other things to really love and other things that can make you really, really happy and that are just as important. It's kind of like, imagine you love playing this one video game. Okay. It's so much fun. You freaking love it. It's so much fun that you just want to play every day. But you've been stuck on this one level for like 2.5 years, okay, of daily playing, 2.5 years. That game might start not to feel as much fun anymore, and that's okay. I think it's fine to put down the controller, change the channel, and just give it a rest for a while, okay? It doesn't mean that you can't come back to it later, but I think you just kind of need to give your bloodshot eyes a rest every once in a while and find something else fun to do, And it isn't giving up. It isn't giving up, because I think for a long time I thought it meant giving up. But what it is giving up is giving up the resistance, which is precisely the thing that you need to give up, And so at first I sort of thought, oh my gosh, this means I'm going to have to give up my dreams and my manifestations. This means I'm not going to be a mom. This means I can't dream of this anymore. It isn't for me. I was in that space for like a few days, okay? But that felt more untrue. That felt more painful than the heartache even of the past several months. So I don't think that's the answer. I really, truly don't. I don't. I'm a firm believer that if a desire is placed on your heart, it wouldn't have been placed on your heart unless it was there and it was meant for you. So I'm giving myself permission to believe again and dream again. And I think it's like something with health, and I think it's something with fertility and things like that. It can be, I don't know if I can say it's easier. I wouldn't say it's easier, but you can feel this sort of like, oh, something's broken. Something isn't ever going to work. Whereas like, if you were like manifesting relationships and you were in multiple long-term relationships and you were never getting married, you just hadn't found, like, from an outsider perspective, it's like, oh, you just haven't found the person yet. Whereas like that same logic applies to something like this. It's like, oh, you just haven't had a baby yet. It doesn't mean that you won't. You just haven't yet. And it's just so funny how like when you're wrapped up in it, it just feels like you won't. But that's not true. It just means it hasn't happened yet. So there's no reason to not believe in manifestation. It's just that it hasn't happened yet, right? And so I know that I've lived so many manifestations in life so far. That's why I love this, is that it's brought so many beautiful things into my life so far that I just want to reset it on this particular thing. I just want to remove that layer of, the best word for it is entitlement. That layer of entitlement that sort of encased these dreams, this entitlement that like, I should be here by now. And like, I hate to break it to you because I'm breaking it to myself. Nowhere is it guaranteed that you should be at any place at any given time. Like, it's just not, your age doesn't depict that. Nothing entitles you to any given manifestation. All that entitles you to any given manifestation is your alignment to it or against it, or resistance to it, I guess I should say. And you can't, and I'm saying this to myself and hopefully a reminder to you if any of this resonates with you, but like, you just can't expect to manifest the thing if you aren't aligned to it, no matter how difficult that alignment might feel. I remember sort of being in that magical energy that I was in when I just had a crush on my husband, 14 years ago. And I knew him. I was friends with him. I was in love with him from afar. Like I called him husband to my friends. Like, how creepy is that? Like, I just knew, right? And my mantra was like, this was the mantra I just kept on thinking to myself. I kept on thinking, thank you, God, for letting me know that a man like this exists. Like, that's just what kept coming back to me was like, oh, thank you. Even if he ends up not being mine, he doesn't even need to be mine, but just that, thank you for just showing me that it's possible that this exists. Because I just love that feeling of possibility. Like, I love that knowing. And I'm trying that on again for size, because that was really magnetic energy to be in. And I want you to try it too. If you're manifesting something that you feel like you've been doubting for a while, like tap into that energy. I'm tapping into it with babies. Like, babies are born every day. Isn't that a beautiful thing? Like, new life is here every day. And that's just beautiful to witness. And it's beautiful to love. And it's beautiful to just live in a world where that happens, right? And it's beautiful to love another human so deeply. And that was such a gorgeous thing about being pregnant. Like, it proves that love can happen sight unseen. And I love that. I love a world where that's possible. And you feel the energy of those thoughts. Those thoughts are just like, ooh, they're so expansive. They're yummy. They're nourishing. They're not like, oh, I've had 3 miscarriages, which has been like the last hour of me talking, right? They're so different, right? And you just fall so madly in love with your baby from the moment you find out. That's why I think miscarriages, even early miscarriage at 5 weeks, can be so daunting, is that it's just the love is so instant and it's so full. And so I'm just sort of reacquainting myself with falling in love with the possibility again. And possibility is very different than entitlement. Entitlement seems to say, I want this thing and I want it now. I sound like the Violet from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I want it and I want it now. That's what entitlement feels like, right? She was very entitled. Possibility is like, wow, this thing exists in the world. And it's not even venturing to say it could be mine. If that feels good, think that. But right now, it just even feels good to just recognize that this is a thing. Like, babies are born every day. Like, even just that thought just feels so good. And that is an energy shift from any other thought, right? That I had been sharing or thinking. So I also had this really deep hypnotherapy session after this latest miscarriage. And it was baby A's soul this time. And she shared that she attempted to return, like she was ready, just her. But that she was so tired, and I could so relate. I was like, man, girl, we have been through 2.5 years and it's been tiring. And, I just wanted to tell her, just rest. Like, I tell her, just as I tell myself, like, just rest. It's okay to rest. It's okay, And I told her, like, hey, I will be here to be your mama whenever you are ready. Even if it's not this lifetime, that is okay. I'm still here. And it makes me cry happy tears because I just know the truth of that. Like, I'm going to be here for you whenever it is and whenever you're ready. But I can also at the same time open myself up to any soul that is looking for me to be its mom. And it was so beautiful once I set that intention, which I don't think I've ever done, which might be my issue right there. Once I set that intention in this hypnotherapy session, I just felt this full body tingle. Like, I felt all these pink orbs floating around me, like these happy little babies floating around me, almost like I was kind of like hosting this open house and all these baby souls came to see the new mama that was on the market, right? And it was just souls that I feel like I'd never let myself meet before, because I think I've always been focused on the ones that were coming through most strongly, which I don't regret, obviously. And I think that just that feeling of like, oh, okay, there's so many paths to this. There doesn't have to be one way, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be this one baby. It doesn't have to be this one soul. Although I want to make it very clear that I am there for that baby when it's ready, but I can be open to loving others too. And I know that that's true and right. And maybe that's all it takes. I don't know. We'll see, right? I'm still exploring what it feels like to reset with a manifestation, to approach it with fresh eyes, to leave that past baggage behind, to remove the expectation and to remove the entitlement or the frustration and to heal, right? To take care of myself in the meantime, to find that present moment joy, to love what I already have. These are the path out of this manifestation crisis, right? And if you find yourself in a manifestation crisis now or sometime in the future, these will be the little breadcrumbs that lead you out of it too. And so I'd been wrestling with that fact, right? How can manifestation exist in a universe where there's so much unknown? Because isn't that the idea of manifestation, right? Law of attraction says that we create our own reality. So if you create your own reality, how can there be unknown? I literally Googled it too, because I'm like, I've never encountered this. I don't think I ever remember any teachers talking about this. In my studies, I've never encountered. How do you reconcile all the unknown with manifestation? Why is there unknown? And this really kind of boggled me for a couple days, And here's my take, okay? Take this for what it is. Here's where I landed. Perhaps you may feel differently. But surrendering to the unknown is a mechanism that we can use to reset our alignment. Surrendering to the unknown is that mechanism that we can use to reset our own alignment. And here's what I mean by that, right? So for the past 2.5 years, and especially this summer during the time period of the 3 miscarriages, I've been in that space of the unknown, right? Or actually, to tell you the truth, I have not been in that space of the unknown. I have been in a very known space. The known space that I am very clearly not having a baby right now, right? You going through a miscarriage, it's known. It is felt. It is very known. And that's all that I've been focusing on is the space of, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding. I am not having a baby, right? That's very known. And what's funny is I think we think of known being belief and oh, I trust in my dreams. But there's also a side of known that's I am very much focused on the not having of this thing. And that is equally as known as pure, utter faith and trust and belief, right? They're both known states of being. One's helpful to you and one's unhelpful to you, right? And yet that known feels more familiar and somehow safer than accepting the unknown, even though the unknown is filled with possibility. Isn't that such a catch-22, right? Surrendering to the unknown seems to say, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I'm going to enjoy life and be okay that no matter which way it goes. And I think I know I really resisted that for a very long time until this past week. Maybe I get successfully pregnant next month. Maybe it's years from now, but my alignment isn't predicated on any one outcome anymore. Because when you are in the known of the lack, when you know the lack, as in it's very easy to fall into when you're experiencing a miscarriage, that you can dig your teeth into that. You know what that is. It's known. And even an unknown that includes what you want can feel scarier than a known that's bad. Isn't that crazy? What is crazy with our human minds where that can make any sort of sense? Because if you look at it logically, you're of course you want the unknown, because at least the unknown includes your manifestation, includes your dream, right? And what's kind of beautiful about focusing on the unknown, focusing on possibility, is that you don't even need to look at the subject of the thing you're manifesting. Honestly, in my life right now, I'm not even looking really too much at the subject of babies, other than to think, oh, wow, it's kind of beautiful that babies exist, right? I need to find things that fill me with joy now. And it's the same for you too if you find yourself in this instance. I literally researched what are some of the main benefits of not having kids, because I'm just you know what? Let's make a list. Let's make an effort to try to enjoy some of those things. You can travel easier. You can go on late date nights. You can sleep in the morning. There's all these things, right? That people who don't have kids can benefit from, that people who have kids, it's a little bit more difficult. And I think in the past, especially these past 2.5 years, I didn't want to enjoy those things because it felt like I was somehow reinforcing the idea that I was enjoying a childless life. And if I was reinforcing the idea that I enjoy being childless, that I would somehow manifest being childless. But actually, it's not the subject in which you focus on. It's the alignment in which you are. The universe knows I want a child. Okay. I have made that abundantly clear. If I am in joy, that is the alignment that will allow it in. Okay. But it's funny to recognize it now because I see how mixed up it is. And I don't want you to make this mistake. Okay. Don't withhold joy because you think, oh, if I'm happy with how things are, then the universe will think that I'll keep on getting how it is. No, joy is what's going to allow things to change. It's the frequency of joy. It's not the subject in which you focus your joy that matters. By not enjoying your life as it is right now, by not enjoying life, even without the manifestation, you hold yourself vibrationally apart from it. And it's such a catch-22. It feels so odd, especially when what brings you joy might be the exact opposite of what you're wanting to manifest. So holding up and not enjoying life until I have a baby is preventing the baby from being here. Again, we're figuring this out in real time. I don't got the baby yet. You better bet I'll tell you when I do. But that's what I imagine is that you got to do the opposite thing, right? Enjoying life without the baby, it can either go one or two ways, right? It can either A, just make life more enjoyable, even if the baby never comes. I'll be enjoying what I'm doing, so it won't make much of a difference. I'll be happy regardless. I'll learn to be happy regardless. Or B, this enjoyment will then put me in that a vibrationally aligned state, a state of consistent joy, so that the baby can come on in as soon as I'm busy and immersed doing a fun non-baby thing. Boom, there I'm 9 months pregnant with our successful baby. And we'll be like, oh, I had to actually be happy with life first before it could change. Gotcha. And here's what I always say. If you don't like the result that you are currently getting, do the opposite. Okay. And that's kind of my philosophy with many things. And it's worked for me in many areas of life. It's always held true for me. So sitting here, putting life on hold, focusing on every little month and every little negative test result and every little twinge and every little nausea and every little symptom, that hasn't been leading to a baby. So I'm going to do the opposite and then see what that creates. And I highly urge you to do the opposite too, if you find yourself hung up on a manifestation. My husband and I, we're looking into adopting a dog, a puppy. So be sure to follow me on Instagram if you want cute golden retriever puppy updates in the near future. I'm planning fun things to do. I'm not even trying to get myself to a place where I even believe that a baby's around the corner. Because right now it's like you can only take the next vibrational step. If the vibrational I was at was it's not happening, I need to just be like, it's beautiful that it can happen in this world. That's the next step. I don't need to go from it's not happening to yes, it's happening and it's happening next month. Like there's too many steps. Too many steps. You just take the next best step that feels good. And sometimes that's even just the possibility of it in the world, right? And it isn't so much even needing to think about your own goal at all. Like the goal is to surrender into the now and then just let that be enough. Okay? Because it's by no longer pushing against what is that you allow what is next, no matter what is next, to come forth. Okay? Whew, this episode's getting really long. There's one last thing I want to make it really clear before we wrap up here. Okay? I want to make it very clear that I decided to share this story today, not as a way to garner pity or sympathy or condolences or even really advice, okay? I'm not even looking for that at this point. I got a plan. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I've even hesitated sharing because I don't like telling the stories of what I don't want, right? I know that they aren't helpful in manifesting your dreams. So to tell a story like this for a long time, I felt like would be very unhelpful. But I think that maybe they are helpful to hear if you find yourself in a similar reckoning. And so I thought maybe by sharing this here today that it might help anyone else who might be at the end of their rope when it comes to their own manifestation. Baby related or not, okay? There might be something out there that you've desired for a really long time and it's just not coming. And it can be so easy, so tempting, so normal, so natural to doubt and to get caught in that sticky webbed spiral that just continues to manifest more and more of the not having of that thing, more and more of the lack. And so my biggest piece of advice, if you could take away one thing here today, as I sort of navigate these waters in real time here with you, it's just to let go. Okay? Reset. Reset with me. Use this as a moment to reset with me rather than thrashing around in those murky, sticky waters, trying to fight your way upstream. Get out of the water and let's just sit on the sand for a bit and let's just regroup. Okay. Don't even focus on the water anymore. The baby, the relationship, the money, the job, whatever you're manifesting. Just cut time out. Give it a break. Don't even focus on it anymore. Focus literally on just something else, something new for a while. Refill your own cup. Re-examine what brought you here. Okay. Learn. If you're going to make mistakes, let's at least learn from them. That's my attitude towards all this. Let's learn from it. Okay. Get some quick wins. Okay. Find some things that bring you joy in the short term, things that you can count on. My husband and I were celebrating our 7th wedding anniversary, and he bought me a pool floaty and an insulated mocktail cup, I should say, with a fancy umbrella straw, and we're going to hang out at the pool and we're going to drink LaCroix, non-alcoholic mojitos. Neither of us have had alcohol in like over a year by now. And we're just going to enjoy life together, right? We're talking about getting that puppy, like I mentioned before. I'm going to go back to therapy. It's helpful just to have somebody to bounce ideas off of. But more than anything, I'm giving myself permission to dream. And I want you to give yourself permission to dream too. Because a lot of times when manifestations don't happen on the timeline or in the way that we expected, right? That entitlement of expectation, when we fall victim to that, not even victim to that, when we do that, right? Let's take responsibility for that too. When we do that, when we fall into that trap, that we can somehow think that, dreams aren't for us. And that's so not true. Give yourself permission to dream. If there's one thing I want you to take away from all this, I want you to know that your dreams are still for you too, even if they don't happen in the way that you expected. So just enjoy them. Rather than focusing on the fact that they aren't here yet, focus on the fact that they exist as a possibility in the world. They exist as an option. Other people have them out there. That's beautiful. It exists as an option on earth, as an opportunity. Isn't it amazing that these things exist? Babies are born every day. New life is all around us. I love it. I love it. It's beautiful. I'm thankful to witness it, right? I'm thankful to be in the vicinity of it. Like, how cool is that? And I promise, okay, I promise I'm not going to leave you guys in the dark again, all right? This manifestation business, man, it just brings up everything, doesn't it? Like, it's not always this high vibe thing all the time, and that's okay. I don't think enough people talk about that because I get it. I get the very real fear, especially as somebody who, part of their business has to do with manifestation. A lot of manifestation teachers don't want to share the manifestation struggles while they're in them because then they think it discounts them in some way. And I'm just choosing to believe that isn't the case. I'm choosing to believe that there's a lot more that you can learn by me sharing than me saying, staying silent. And I think that's true. So I hope you don't think any less of me from sharing my difficulties here. But if you do, I guess I should say, I'm okay with that too, because I'm not perfect at it. I never will be. And I don't think any of us will ever be perfect at it. Even those who may act like they're perfect at it, they aren't either. But that's what makes all of this so much fun, right? We wouldn't have fun with it if it was so easy. So I just want to let you guys know, I love you all. Thank you for holding the space. Thank you for listening. Thank you for learning from my journey, because that definitely makes all of it a whole lot more useful in that case and worthwhile in that case too. And I'm sending you all the best on your journey. Let me know if anything resonated with you here today over on my Instagram account. You can always reach me. I'm at britt.hoops, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.